Joining us today is Dean Inniss, managing partner at Your Best Life Now, an organization helping people to elevate finance, family, fitness, and faith to maximize their best life through coaching, community, and exclusive once-in-a-lifetime experiences. I'm going to have Dean's full bio in the show notes, but I am really excited to have this conversation with Dean Inniss, and you're going to want to stick around. Welcome to Rat Race Reboot. I'm your host, Laura Noel. And as a certified coach and former 27-year military leader, each week I provide bite-sized mindset pivots that will help you reset your mind, reawaken your spirit, and regain your control. Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of Rat Race Reboot. I'm so excited to connect with Dean and have him share his story and his wisdom. We're going to have a great conversation today. So first and foremost, Dean, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Laura, and congratulations on your recent degree. I'm very excited for you. That's amazing.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Laura. I like that. It's got a great ring to it.
I'm getting used to it.
So, thank you for having me on the show. I so appreciate what you do for your audience. I think that anytime that we can bring different perspectives from different places, that everybody benefits. And so I'm just excited to be here and let's, examine what you want to examine in my background, because there's a lot there.
Oh my gosh. Well, one of the things that I'm always interested in hearing, because, not only are you, inspiring others to live their best life. We were just talking backstage about you feeling so grateful and living your best life. And sadly, I just coming on the heels of 11 episodes around the topic of burnout. There are so many people who are not feeling like they're living their best life. And I know that you have a corporate background and I would love to hear about your journey. What were you doing? What led you to what you're doing today? We could start there.
Well, interestingly enough, I started working when I was 12. And like many people, you don't have a good financial base. My parents weren't wealthy, hardworking people. My dad was in the military. My mom was, at the time, she was a dental assistant, and they had 4 kids. So we kind of all found our own way. They taught us life skills, and it was the most important thing. Had a loving family. So didn't have a lot of money, but had a lot of love. And I think that I'd trade that for any situation. When I went to college, I paid for my own way, and I worked 3 jobs in the summer. And when I graduated, I kind of went, I'm 21. I've been working for 9 years, and that's all I have in front of me. And so I thought to myself, what do I want to do? And I got a degree in economics, and I thought, law enforcement, helping people is a good way. I would like to get in the FBI. Well, in 1985, the job situation in our country was terrible. I know that Obama said that he called that the Great Recession. Well, it wasn't anything. It was a minor inconvenience. In 85, we had mortgage rates of 17%, inflation of 11%, unemployment of 13%, and the government had a hiring freeze. That tells you how bad it is, because our government never stops hiring. Yeah. But so I couldn't get into the FBI. So I went local law enforcement, and, it was a great job, but it was very hard to pay the bills back then. It was $15,000, and I had a banking. I could go into banking. So I made that decision to go into banking. So I started my banking career back then. I also continued in law enforcement because I was trained, graduated from the academy. And so I did the reserve department for 5 years for free. So it didn't pay me enough while I was doing it, but I did it for free after I went to the bank. But it was a great experience. And so I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about business. I worked for a national bank for about 14 years and went to work for a national wholesale mortgage bank in 1999, and had the best career situation you could possibly have. I learned a lot, and I train a lot based on the way this company was run, and great support, great giving you opportunity to run your own business your own way, as long as you were in parameters, no micromanagement, but gave you the support system that you needed to be successful. I think that's what a lot of people are missing now, and that's why you have burnout, right?
Yeah.
You don't identify where you want to be first, and that's your problem. What job do you want to do? And if you engage in a job that's just not for you, but for the money, you're going to ultimately have burnout. So I was able to avoid that because this company was terrific. But then me and my wife, I was going to say I had my son, but my wife actually did. I was traveling. I was really successful, but my son was 18 months old. And I'm like, what am I doing? I need to be a parent. So being from my background, I think that that's the most important job that you could have. So yeah. I took a job locally at the largest mortgage bank in West Texas. And I stayed there for about 13 years, was able to have some great success, got into some leadership positions with the Texas Mortgage Bankers Association and the National Mortgage Bankers Association. I enjoyed my job. I did a lot of new things. I did mortgage-backed securities. I had a large company. I doubled the assets in that company in 4 years. I was enjoying the success, but not the job as much. So I stayed with the job for 13 years. I probably should have only stayed the 10 that I told him I'd stay. And when I left, it was amazing. And the job was the best job in the world because it allowed me to be a dad. So I was home. I got to raise my son with my wife. I got to be his coach. I got to do that. So from that angle, it was the very best job. But I'm doing my favorite job now. And I guess I'm an executive consultant for successful business people. And I help them grow their businesses. I help them deal with their employees. And I learned that through the successful companies that I got to work with. And so I take a lot of that corporate training. And because I was in leadership positions at all the companies that I work for, I guess ultimately you're an entrepreneur without the risk. So I knew how to run a business. And being an economist, I always said, I'll make your business flourish. And I take a percentage of the gains and get paid for performance. And so I always excelled at that. So I guess in and of itself, I was an entrepreneur because I'd run the businesses, but I didn't have the risk. Well, now I'm willing to take the risk. So I'm involved with 9 companies and I'm having a really good time doing it. I get to work with the people that you choose. I get to help elevate them and have an impact on their life, which is really rewarding. And, like I told you, I woke up and I was working this morning. And when I saw you, I just felt really good about where I'm at, why I'm here. And we talked about some of these things that a lot of people are going through now. And I think that we're both in a position where we can help them. So let's do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, when you were in one of your roles, when you finally decided to leave and build your own business, and you said you were there for 13 years, maybe should have stayed 10. What was that like when you were in the process of leaving? How did you feel about that?
I guess there's a little uncertainty about it. Was a very highly compensated job. I was the president and COO of a company, and I was paid very well. And from a compensation standpoint, I guess there's that always apprehension about leaving a job like that. But to be honest with you, I think our life's about moments that change us. And I was doing a speaking engagement last year, and it was called that. And it forced you to examine those trigger points in your life that you made changes. And I think that everybody should do that for 2 reasons. Number one, they can identify why they have the behavior they have. And number 2, they can look at what triggered their behavior change. And once you figure out how you can trigger your own change in behavior, then you become more of an owner of the direction of your life and less of a servant of a direction that you chose maybe out of need.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of people have this burnout situation. You know, the top 10% earners in our country are somewhere around 140,000 a year. And you think about that and you go, these are the executives in middle management and stuff like that that are making decent money, but they're serving a need. And because they want to have 2 trucks and they want to have a nice house and everything else, they get locked in and then they suffer burnout. Well, I think if you can identify those trigger points in your life, you can figure out how to put yourself in a position that you really want to do and enjoy, whether you're working for yourself or someone else. And I think the same holds true for employees, right? Employers have an obligation to put together a job description. And then once they put that description together, they have another obligation that's more important, and that's to identify the skill sets that advance that job description. Then their next responsibility is hiring the person with that skill set. Because people, when they're interviewing, they like a person, they'll fit into our culture, they'll do all of this, but do they have the skill sets to do that job description? If we find those people that have those skill sets, put them in that job, train them correctly, retrain them because they're human. That's what I preach to my executives. You got to retrain. Don't get frustrated. Retrain. Then evaluate. You put people in the job that they have the skill sets for, they're going to do a good job. If you give them the right support, they're going to enjoy their job. They're going to flourish in their job, which means they're going to have fun at home, which means they're going to like coming to work. And we forget those simple things because we're hiring to fill a slot, you know? And so we can give our employees a better situation and we can give ourselves a better situation. Because if you're building culture, you want people to be on your team where they're in the best place to do the best job they're capable of. The team excels, you excel, people are happy, you build a good culture, and you can advance that way. And so I think it's important for people to identify what their skill sets are and where they'll thrive. And I think it's important for employers to be able to identify those skill sets that go with that job description to do the same. And as I coach a lot, I don't see that happening enough. And, there's an enormous amount of data and studies. Gallup did a huge study that showed, there's 12 points of employee engagement. And among those, there's groups. And among the most important group is people need to have an expectation of what's expected of them. And if that expectation for success is in their wheelhouse, as it were, or their job description and skill sets, they're going to do well. We find that 75% of employees are disengaged because they really don't know much past the bare minimum of what's expected to them. They don't get the training to get to what's expected of them. And they don't feel that somebody's interested in what's expected of them. And giving them a course, a direction aligned with the mission of the company. And I'm not a big mission statement. What I think is, what's the value proposition of your company? And if people understand what you're doing, how you differentiate it, and what you offer to your clients, and they can be involved in that, then you have alignment. And alignment's one of the key things to avoiding burnout for both your employees and to yourself. And then simplicity. Automate as much as you can, simplify through SOPs, give people trajectory, good training so that they feel comfortable, they feel protected, and they feel like they can grow. Give them a course where they can grow their careers. Those types of things are really significant in employee engagement. And, you look at it, and very seldom in that data does money come up.
Yeah.
There's other things that are really important, and the money will follow.
Yeah. Right. I think a lot of what you're saying is too, like, if we're not honest about, and if we're not really, because I've helped the company look at job descriptions, and there was a disparity between what was on the job description, what talent acquisition was looking at when they were trying to find talent, and then what was actually a part of the what was a part of the job. And so when you get into that job and it's not what you think, because you're really wanting to lean on skill sets, of course we want to grow and expand our skill sets, but if you're applying for something and you feel confident and comfortable in it, and that is the job, that's empowering, and then there's a place that you can go and grow from there. So I think I've seen that. I think that's so important to get into those job descriptions, but also linking it to core competencies, not just the technical, tactical skills. I think core competencies, and part of that aligns with culture. What attitude is a part of a core competency, but what are the core competencies necessary that dovetail with those skill sets that are a part of that role? So there's so much goodness here. You mentioned alignment, and when you have those things, you have alignment. And I would also add that if we care about our teammates' growth and they're aligned in roles where they have the competencies and skill sets to be successful in those roles, then there's a place to grow. Then we can linking yes to the overall mission. We want to be in alignment there, but also how can we get to know on a personal level, what are our teammates' goals and vision for their lives, and how can we have alignment with their goals and the mission? If we can, because that creates alignment, not just in doing the role to the mission, but it's alignment as the whole person. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, you heard me say that if people are happy at work, they're going to be happier at home.
Yeah.
And you're so right. Backstage, you and I were talking about how you approach things from a team level. And I said, that's a beautiful approach, because in those 12 components of employee engagement, it's really there's a separate group tied to team, right? I want to know that my teammates are working as hard as I am towards that goal, right? That we're all moving in the same direction. If you feel like your teammates are working hard, you're going to work hard. And if you're working positively and getting trained to do the job well, you work hard. And then it talks about having a best friend at work, which people don't identify, which is true. Mm-hmm. The reality is, half our waking life is spent at work. If you don't have a friend or a comrade or somebody you can share things with, like your goals, mm-hmm. your future, your aspirations, you lose that. And having that support system for it as well. In other words, your boss actually cares about your goals. And if they care about your goals and you're looking at what your skill sets are and what kind of career path you are, that alignment inside, like you said, what the company's alignment is, just explodes. I had that operation, my last operation, and they didn't believe that we could double the size of the company in 4 years, what took them 23 years to do. It also was in 2008, which is the worst mortgage debacle that happened. Well, I've always found in my career as an economist, some of the best times to do well is when everybody else is licking their wounds and, oh, woe was me, the economy recession. I never do that. I always just say, where are the opportunities? How can we turn it around and go for it? And that's what we did. But it required not everybody increasing their talent level 100% to double it. What it really only required is giving people the ability to improve their skills and their performance 10 to 15% throughout the company, resulted in doubling the size of the company. Mm-hmm. And it was through those skills that you learn in employee engagement, training, camaraderie, bringing people together, team building, and then looking at the career, putting people in the best position, that those things happen.
Yeah. There's so much more to just putting our heads down and doing our job. We need to lift our head up and see the people around us. One of the things that I do facilitating in organizations is helping folks see the impact that their work is having on other people's ability to do their work. And I've been doing this work for a long time, and I can't say that I always paid attention to the impact that I was creating for other people to do their work. And so that connection point is also an important piece of this. It's really about creating those relationships at work, lifting our head up to look around, to make those connections and have a deeper understanding of, well, what are you doing each and every day? Why are you getting up out of bed? How does my role impact your role? And that in and of itself, even if we're not even getting on a deeply personal level, that connection fosters growth. And often we find that we might even be duplicating efforts, or, there's things that we're doing that might not be helpful to the other person. We can really save ourselves a lot of time. So even in a practical sense, that makes sense.
Well, it's like you said. I mean, one of the things I prided myself on, and I can see that you have, is bringing energy to an environment.
Yeah.
And when you bring energy to an environment, that allows people to share, because some people need positive energy to open up, to feed. And I think that's really important. And whether it's you or teammates that you can find. And we were talking about leadership and how leadership is about service. And we were talking about positions after your 12-part series and how leaders are getting burnt out. And I think it's a lot of leadership through service means that you get involved, but it also means that you can have help in leadership.
Yeah.
And true leadership is engaging a team that believes in what you want to accomplish, and that spreads strategically at all levels in the company. So you have to have that support system in leadership. You have to be able to count on that manager or that employee that understands what we're doing, is excited about it. That's part of how you change operations, how you feed that energy, how you give direction.
Yeah.
And I think it's hugely important to bring that and to acknowledge that at every level, so that every person feels really important in what they bring to the table. I had a receptionist, and she, probably one of the lowest paid positions in the company. But in my mind, I made sure that she understood how important she was as the gatekeeper, at the responsibility of the first contact, and trained her so that she could do the very best job. I didn't have a hard time keeping employees when you take that kind of investment in them and their success and making them feel good about what they do.
Yeah. They'll go to the ends of the earth for you. We were just talking in a group about, it takes more time to see the humanity in other people, and I need them to do this and this and this. And I'm like, well, sometimes you have the mission, you got to get it done, and you don't have the leeway to let people off of work during a push time. But if you see the humanity in that person and connect with them on a human level, and at least try to empathize and deal with their situation, even if the answer is no, they'll more likely receive that message and still go to the ends of the earth for you, because they know you care. And you brought up a great point about leaders being able to lean on other people and be supported. And this also recently happened, where a senior leader who people normally would just think, oh, that's a senior leader. Somebody saw that person at a meeting, and he's like, whoa, that person's like veins going to pop out of their neck. And the next day they ran into that leader. They were walking past him, and they just said, how are you doing? And the leader stopped and said, well, yeah, that was a tough one. And he just said, thank you for asking. I really appreciate you asking. So nobody's above, we're all humans, right? So it's all about caring for each other. So allowing ourselves to be supported. And if we're not that top leader, they're humans too. Ask how we can be helpful.
The simplest things, I use a term all the time, and people quote me, it's a Deanism, right? Simple, but not easy.
Yes.
It's always simple to fix problems. It's just not always easy. It's like you said, when crunch time is here and it's the end of the month and you're trying to get everything done. Yeah, sometimes you don't have the time to recognize it. But if you took 15 seconds and say, hey, why don't you take a breath? Let me get you a cup of water. You're doing great. You know what that does? That 15 seconds, that gives them the energy to finish it out. Yeah. And like you said, that one question, that was rough. How you doing?
Yeah.
That gives them the energy to move forward, to let some of that baggage go. So no wonder they call you a doctor, because you're pretty smart.
Oh, likewise, my friend.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm curious, because you talked about the 12 components of employee engagement. What are some of those other components so people have a deeper understanding?
It's, do I have the opportunity to grow in my position from an educational standpoint, training? Okay. Does somebody in my organization care about what I care about? As an example of that, one of the things that I incorporated into my company was community involvement. And if you study millennials and the generations after them, community involvement is really important. And so if you provide an opportunity through the company to have community involvement, that elevates their performance as well. And why is it? Because at our core, we have things that mean something to me. My dad died very young. He was younger than me. He passed away of cancer. So cancer research was important to me. Other people have things in their life that are important to them. So what we identified was, what do you like to do in the community? Some people wanted to run for this, or they wanted to be, Boy Scouts, or they wanted. And so we offered opportunities through sponsorship or through support. But what else we did was acknowledged it on our company website. We put our team members and how they were doing things, and helped them support what was important to them outside of work, as you said. Yeah. And so that's really important. And developing a communication network is really important. That people don't feel intimidated, so that they can talk to each other, or up or down. I had an open door policy. Sometimes that's not always convenient, but it worked for me. And I think that allowed people to, like you said, when somebody came in and they were very upset, I don't believe in sympathy. I believe in empathy. Yep. I want to identify where they're coming from, have an understanding of it, and then relate what we're doing and what the right situation is compared to where they're at and what their situation is. And as you said, sometimes it's not always a yes.
Right.
But here's one of the core principles of employee engagement. I just want to be heard.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree. You don't have to disagree. But somebody that actually cares to listen and then acknowledge and explain. That's huge. So those are some of them. I think of them, they're basically 3 groups of 4, right? And we've kind of covered all of them. How the team relates to each other, how the company relates to them, and how the job puts them in the right position to do their very best work.
Yeah, I love that. So important. And, if you have happy employees, you have employees who want to stay. And it's not the carrot and stick thing.
No.
It's so much.
Well, one of the other things was I took time to educate them on their 401k plan. In 2009, the stock market went like this, and all the employees were calling, do we need to get out? Do we need to get out? And all I did was say, no, we're going to have a meeting. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And within 18 months, the market was back to where it was. Plus, during that 18 months, their contributions allowed them to buy stock at a cheaper amount.
Yep.
So, taking that and looking at some key statistics, 401k participation in the United States is somewhere around 34%. At my company, it was 70. And the reason why we did that is because we took interest in their future.
Right.
And so I taught from that level, not from a trustee level or an economist level. Approach people at the level that you can communicate them with, and that's all they want.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been really enlightening. And I know that folks who are listening here today, whether you're in a leadership position or you're a manager or you're in a role, these are some things that could help you get in alignment with where you are today in the organization. This can also help you kind of take some steps necessary to just check in with your folks, ensure that you have a team who's engaged. And so how would somebody go about connecting with you to work with you through this?
Well, my company is YBL Now, and the website is www.yblnow.com. And it's a really great website because it gives you a flavor of what we do. It gives you a flavor of the trips. It gives you some testimonials from people on how we've impacted their business. It also has an application. So if you are really interested, you can fill out the application. I'm lucky that we're not just pitching it all the time. We don't have it on Facebook ads or anything like that. We've been very lucky. We operate mostly on referral, but I encourage people to go to that because it may give them some ideas on how they want to pursue their future. And it's really all about that, those 4 pillars. And what we found with most executives is they need balance. Yeah. They're really good at this and they're really suffering here. And I think that's what we all need. I think that's why I feel so much better about where I'm at in my life, because I have balance or I'm working on it. The other thing is I'm in LinkedIn at Dean Inniss. I'm on Facebook at Dean Inniss. I'm on Instagram at DJ_Crusade, which is kind of homage to my dad, who was he taught me about the Knights of the Round Table and the Crusades and stuff like that. So that's where I'm at there. So you can access me that, and I respond. So great.
Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners? Anything that we've left unsaid? Any tips or anything?
Well, you brought something up, and it was funny because I had this before we even talked about some of the things that you were talking about. I would recommend that leaders read this book, and it's called Leading Change by John P. Cotter. And it's not a new book. It was done by the Harvard Business School. And what it teaches you is how to build that structure on getting key players to help you in change. And we were talking about, I think there's enormous change coming with AI and with how we need to reskill our employees. And I want to talk about that because employees' jobs as they exist today are they going to be changing. And if you have good teammates, you want to be able to help them reskill them in the new way and in the new changes. And so I think leading change is really important because we're going to have a lot of it. And it's going to be at a very fast pace now. I teach AI and how it impacts management and decision-making. And I think that that would be one tidbit I would leave with leaders and businessmen is to get prepared. Don't be afraid. Learn how to attack it and then learn how to help your employees be part of that new world.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So much change going on. Great read. So I would highly recommend it. And I would highly recommend all of you listening here today to visit Dean on his website, see what he has to offer, some ideas for how you might up-level that connection within your team. And most importantly, I want to thank you again for pouring into our audience. I really appreciate you taking the time here today and having this conversation.
Well, thank you, Laura. I was really excited to get invited, and I appreciate what you do, like you said, and hopefully we can help anyone or one person or 1,000 people. It's just an amazing gift that we have that we can share.
Yes. Thank you. Well, for those of you listening today, remember, as I always close every episode, everything is created twice. First in your mind and how you think about things, and then in physical form. So stick around for our next episode, and thank you for listening today. Go to ratracereboot.com for our latest downloads, and we'll see you next week.